Hi, it's Barry Neale here. I want to do a short video on a question that I get asked quite frequently from other hypnotherapists and NLP practitioners. And that is, what do you do when you get a client who doesn't seem to access states? They come in and they say they've got a problem, and then they start to describe the problem, but they don't go into the state. They seem to be very, very dissociated from it. And from an NLP perspective, some people might call these people auditory digital. They're very monotone and they're just not accessing any sort of state at all. And they'll tell you the story about the problem, but they're dissociated. And it's kind of like, for whatever reason, they have learned to dissociate from painful feelings, but they kind of lost control over it and they don't access anything. And what can happen is that when they're in the therapy room with you, they start playing out that issue with you. And what will happen is you'll become the trigger for it because you're asking them to access states and they can't do it. So now they're playing out that problem with you. So what you have there is some kind of transference. Now, the bad news is if you don't know how to deal with this, what can often happen is you as the therapist think, well, hang on a minute, I'm doing all these things, I've got my technique here and nothing's happening. And then you start questioning yourself, thinking, well, what am I doing wrong? So you end up getting in a crappy state. You become unresourceful. And what you then have is kind of a counter-transference loop, because you're playing out the problem with the client, and that's a recipe for getting nowhere very, very quickly. So they're doing the structure of the problem with you. Now, if you understand this and you have a way of working with this, then you're going to be able to work with clients that most hypnotherapists and most NLP practitioners just won't be able to do anything with. Because when you understand this, you'll be able to deal with this relatively easy. And transference is something that is not often taught in hypnosis circles anymore, but it's been known going right back 150 or so years back to the Nancy School in France. And they realized that hypnosis can accelerate transference. So we need to have a way of dealing with this. Now, depending on your training, one of the ways of dealing with them is to start to provoke them. Now, if you've had any training in provocative therapy, the work of Frank Farrelly, that's one good way of doing that, because you're going to provoke a response. But if you haven't had training with that, well, what are you going to do? Well, what you do is you start working with them, and you ask them to access a state or whatever, and they're saying, well, I can't do that. And then they'll say something, well, I don't think this is working. Now, if you go off and then try and do another exercise or rephrase it or something, then you're getting caught up in that loop and you're going to get frustrated. So instead of that, accept what they say. So if they say, well, I don't think this is working, say, that's right. You don't think this is working. Just be present with that. And what's happening now? Well, I'm getting frustrated. Okay, so you don't think this is working and you're getting frustrated. Just be present with that. And what's happening now? Well, this is just a waste of time. Okay, so you don't think this is working and you're getting frustrated and you think this is a waste of time. Just be present with that. And what's happening now? And what you're going to do is you're going to feed back to them every part of their experience, saying, that's right, you don't think this is working, whatever it is, feed that back to them, and then say, and just be present with that. And what will happen after a period of time is you're building up this pressure, and suddenly something's going to pop, and they're either going to get they're going to feel this hurt will come up, this fear will come up, maybe anger will come up, and suddenly this emotion will come up. And suddenly they'll have this big aha, because suddenly they're now feeling something in your present. And then you can work with that, and then you can do whatever you do. So if you're doing eye movement techniques, you might say, okay, so this feeling, whatever it is this a new or familiar feeling? Follow this back. What's the earliest memory you have of this feeling? Doesn't have to be the first time, but it's the earliest time you can remember feeling it now. Or if you're doing sort of a timeliney type process, you can work with that. But the biggest aha they're going to get is when they suddenly feel something in your presence and you've broken that loop. And then you've got something you can work with. And if you work with this, it's going to create a massive amount of change with them. So I hope this helps. If you get caught up and you start getting frustrated and you start thinking, well, this is not working, I'm doing something wrong, you're going to get caught up in their loop. So just go with it. Feed back their experience. That's right. You don't think blah, blah, blah. Just be present with that and what's happening now. Now, I can tell you, sometimes this might take 10, 15 minutes, but when it goes, you got something then to work with. And then you can go to work in whatever way you do. But this is a fantastic way of working with those clients who think they can't access feelings. So hope this has been of some help for you. If you have any questions, let me know.